Hello, y'all. We're all mad here. This one is gonna be quite epic. This is the beginning of the whole Windows 10 to Windows 11 to Linux experience. And what I have done here is I have taken one of my older laptops. It's still quite new. It's a Microsoft Surface Pro Portfolio. It's one of these really cool designs, which I had to end up giving up because they were too fragile for how expensive they were. Coming in from $2,500 to $3,500, depending on the options. It's just, first of all, it's too much to spend on a laptop. And second of all, laptops are always at risk, so you need to spend less, get more value for the money, and have a design, a physical design that actually puts the thing at less risk. So I wish I could hold this up and show it to you, but I'm going to show you my other laptop, which is my Surface laptop. Not the Pro, I don't think, but this was only like $800. The amount of value I've gotten out of this compared to that is worlds of difference. The small, inexpensive ones are just much, much better. So go cheap, my friends, unless you got some really compelling reason not to. So this, what you're looking at, is a completely stock Windows 10 factory restore. I had gone into settings. I guess I can show you that. It's running right now doing the download, but there's no harm in surfing away from the screen. It's only at 74% done of the Windows 11 download for performing the upgrade. So there will be a system reboot coming, and this stream will end, and then I'll start another stream when I come back under Windows 11. To get to this point, I had gone from the home of settings, which I guess is very, very low performance right now, between being a slightly older model and between being a very stock Windows 10 system. You can see I haven't even installed all the driver updates that are queued up. So I see there's very little point in it in applying all of these just so that I can do the Windows 11 upgrade, which will inevitably have to do it all again. So I had gone into see if I can figure it out. I guess it must have been updates and security. Boy, getting it wrong is really a penalty because of how long you have to wait for it to come up in the first place. Yeah, this one's going to be like waiting for paint to dry. So I'll wave one of my most prized possessions in life. This is a hubcap tire hammer. And this I associate with my dad because in the house in the suburbs of Philadelphia where I grew up, I have a very clear recollection of this hanging on my dad's pegboard tool wall, which in the basement, which he took great pride in. The basement was refinished, and it was refinished around his work area. He left that work area intact. And this is one of the few tools or even possessions in my life from those days that have made it through the years. I'm a bit over 50 years old. These recollections must be from about as long ago as my child's age is right now, which is 11 years old. So I'm sure I'm thinking back to, preteen memories for sure. See, it's not even going into update and security. Things are so slow. So I guess I'll give you more of a tour here of different stuff. That's not a left click versus right click thing. That's just responsiveness. Isn't that terrible? So I'm going to show you all the terrible things about Windows 10 stock configuration as we wait. It's history now though, right? Because everyone's moving on to Windows 11. First thing is how this taskbar, I dragged this one out, but everything else is by default. The OBS one is the only one I added. And of course the OBS one here, but all this stuff is left out. All this stuff is there. Weather, Look how stuffed the menu is with stuff I don't even want. You know, it's trying to push on to me Microsoft Office and all these other, you know, things that must be part of promotions, and the way it's showing stuff here. If you watch my other videos, you know I strip things down to the bare essence. It's almost not worth doing the customization now, because I'm going to want to see what it's like when a stock system gets upgraded to Windows 11. So I'm not going to start deleting every single icon here, turning off the recently added feature, turning off showing anything but what's currently running. Why would you ever show anything here other than what's currently running? Getting rid of Cortana, getting rid of the weather, getting rid of all these little task things. I even get rid of the date, and certainly I get rid of these notifications. Oh my God. I can't even imagine how people focus and concentrate when working under Windows. Maybe some people set the taskbar to pop up and disappear, but that's no good, because then every time you move your mouse and hit it against the bottom, well, you're using a mouse in the first place. That's bad, but you're not going to get away from a mouse under Windows, I suppose. So every time you move the mouse to the bottom, that thing pops up and disrupts flow. So you know, there's OneDrive they try and get installed and turned on by default. I don't know. Oh my God, there's so much garbage. So what we're doing is we're waiting for that download to finish, so I can, you know, show you the Windows 10 to 11 install. Not that you need to see that. Everyone has been bullied into that over the past 4 months or so. I don't know how long it's been since Microsoft has strongly encouraged going to it. The only thing I've done on my browser so far is, you know, log in to my Google account so I can do this live streaming. Am I still live streaming? Yeah, I guess I am. I wonder if anyone's there. Concurrent viewers 0. Yeah, everyone's eating dinner, and we really need to see. Oh, there is an issue of whether I'm using my NVIDIA card here for streaming. Maybe I'll go into the OBS software here with you and make sure that I really am on my NVIDIA card, which is in the lower physical part. This is a model laptop where the screen detaches and allows it to turn around and put back in and be used as sort of an artist's drawing tablet, or to be kept unattached and to be used just as a normal tablet, Kindle or whatever, reading, you know, just like an iPad. So it's designed to be like a convertible, like a Lenovo Yoga, for example, but whereas the Yoga stays attached and sort of twists around on a pivot, this one completely unattaches through some magic little button tricks that are done that you sometimes end up hitting by accident, and that's a real pain. So as much as I liked this Microsoft Surface Pro portfolio design in the early days, and it's not a Surface Pro, it's a Surface Laptop Pro. It's a laptop design. I don't advocate it anymore. That openness to it, that non-clamshellness to it, actually exposes the insides to too much risk. If it gets compressed a bit, there's a bit of bend that's possible that can crack a screen, and repairing these things is just nigh impossible. They take heat guns to it and pry it, and then it's never the same after the replacement parts put in. Awful design. It looks good. It sold me twice. I got one for myself. I got one for my wife. Both mine and my wife's had stuff go wrong with it that were small little things that made such a large investment become, you know, nearly worthless, just super quick, just dissolved away like that. And so cheap laptops. Microsoft laptops are fine, but go with the cheap ones. Go with the Intel ones so you don't have driver problems. Okay, where are we at? You don't need to see this thing here. Feel free to chat to me. I'll be checking whether people are chatting to me. But again, what I'm really doing is the exciting process of waiting for this this Windows 11 download. Last time I checked, it was at 70 something. It's at 83 something. So there's hope, ladies and gentlemen. This is not one of the videos you really have to hang around. I'll just like field questions. My friend from the other day was asking me great questions, and I was having a lot of interactivity with the audience, and that was really a lot of fun. So maybe we can repeat that now. And I don't even have Vim, so normal even note taking here. I'll make a OneNote with using Notebook and leave it out on the desktop here to kind of enumerate through all the things that should be done to make a Windows 10 system usable, and maybe some of that will apply to Windows 11. So Notepad is infinitely better than it used to be. You can say make Windows usable, and then I should be able to do Control+. Yay! So even that kind of stuff, right? Save. I'll save it to my desktop, and I'll just call it notes.txt. No, I'll call it make Windows usable.txt. You should see the icon appear there. Okay, so number 1. I'm not going to actually do it, but it has to be Taskbar Settings. It's going to be something like only show things that are actually running. Lock the taskbar, automatically hide the taskbar in tablet mode. Use small icons. Use peek. Replace the command PowerShell. Show badges. Ugh. Can't believe what operating systems do these days. Yeah, it's almost not worth noting this. It's just we go through it together and we interactively, work through it. Show taskbar buttons on, combine buttons, people, how many. Show, I can't even find it, right? So you right click it looking for, only show icons for what's running, not pinned stuff, but I guess you just unpin stuff. Okay, so let's go with that. Go back to update so we can see how. So unpin everything from taskbar. Okay, simple enough, and I can do just Control S to save too. Right click, unpin everything from start. From start menu. Okay. I right-clicked and moved away, so I have the penalty menus, right? I hate that. You have to go back to the same icon, whatever it was. I can't even find it. Okay, there, we got rid of it. Okay, so this is a little bit abstract, but turn off all unnecessary services and remove notifications from taskbar. Does that make sense? Right? Because they go hand in hand. These represent running services like OneDrive. So you both want to turn off OneDrive and remove their icons from these things. Next thing is you just turn off the notification center itself. Does that deserve its own thing? Yeah, that's a pretty intrusive thing, right? So 4, turn off notification center. I hope I got the terminology right. And this stuff might really be Windows 10 specific. So I will keep that labeled as Windows 10. Okay, the next thing is to remove all icons from the desktop. There's only a few here, and I don't object to them that much, but it's only the ones that you're going to keep hotkeys for that remain. Remove all icons from desktop except for those you wish to launch with hotkeys. See, because like anything left out on the desktop, you have the ability to right click, go properties, and drop your cursor in there, Control Shift E, right? And that is about the only justifiable reason. Requires admin rights to do that for some reason. That's the only justifiable reason to leave this stuff out on the desktop in my mind. In fact, I even get rid of the recycle bin from the desktop. So I'm not sure exactly how to do that. We'll find that again later. I'll probably document these things better. But 6, remove recycle bin from desktop. Unless you want that on a keyboard shortcut. You can always get to it other ways, especially Internet Explorer, Windows key E. That's just such an important thing. And then you make sure that, well, you can do it now even before you hide it. You make sure that the recycle bin is one of your quick access locations. So I'll say that from desktop, but make it part of Windows Explorer quick menus, is that what they call it? Still on 83%. Can that really be even right? How long does this take? Oh, forever, because quick access. Put it on quick access menu. Okay, that's pretty important. What else to make Windows 10 usable? Let's take a look. Oh, we got to turn off Cortana. I don't have to say exactly how at this point. I'll just list these things. Turn off Cortana. Remove, question mark. Is there a way to remove it entirely? Maybe there's a way to remove it entirely. This task view, you shouldn't have that as a distraction. Remove task view icon. And that, I guess, goes along with the remove all taskbar icons, but these two are a little bit different because, they're not really shortcuts for programs or anything. Oh, yeah. So one of the things I sorely miss is when I do Control Windows key left and right, there are no virtual desktops. Oh, there's no virtual desktops. I think that's what this thing is supposed to get you used to, right? So you can now switch between your running apps, which is kind of more interesting. Oh, you got to get rid of timeline. Ugh, oh my God, what a horrible feature. You add your new desktops and you get rid of timeline on, let's see what they call this feature, task view. Remove task view icon, turn off timeline, add a few virtual desktops. I use 7. Not because it's a lucky number. It's the amount that through a process of trial, just using it, that's what I always end up at. 3 assigned, 4, 5, 6, 7, still at 83%. Oh my God. I might have to break this into multiple videos, even just waiting for this. There are deeper customizations that I know I make. So if I just keep looking, maybe I should know. I don't want to actually do the customizations because I want to see what the stock Windows 10 looks like after the Windows 11 upgrade. Chances are it would undo any customizations I made anyway, but this is kind of like a scientific control. I'm even a little bit bummed that I had to install the OBS software in order to do this streaming stuff. Speaking of which, maybe that's how we kill some time. Anyone talking? Anyone talking? I don't think anyone even here. Concurrent viewers. No. Hey, 2 likes already? Oh my goodness. Chat revenue. Chat revenue. People who could send money during chat. That's interesting. Oh, wait. Oh, hi. Desktop Chronicles. Hey, Mike. Thanks for the great content. Honestly, you are the reason I started playing around with RPIs back in the day and made money out of them, and also the reason I have switched to Python. Well, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment, Desktop Chronicles. I am glad to do it. Can you refresh my memory? What are RPIs and what did I say? I should be using them. Remote process invocation, RPC. I guess while I'm at it, I very deliberately have my Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I guess it's the Disney character, so it's Alice in Wonderland. Mad Hatter cup here, because we're going into very insane places with wild, crazy characters. And we're all mad here. The very Windows operating system itself is the exact equivalent of an Alice character. All the proprietariness, all the weird quirkiness. In fact, Windows is much like the Mad Hatter himself. Oh, Raspberry Pi boards. Yeah. Okay, well, that was back in the day. Yeah, one of my tiny little claim to fames. I'm a rather quirky individual, and one of the things I do, well, I'm a canary in the coal mine, honestly. I survey and monitor the technologies. I know all the awesome, cool, little weird stuff out there just from the news stories that pop up and following the Google suggests. And back in the day, I saw Raspberry Pi, and it wasn't the first one I was watching. I was watching something called the Rascal, which was also a Python-inspired board. It just didn't have the Broadcom graphics chip in there. And so Eben from the Raspberry, Eben, the heart and soul of the Raspberry Pi, who was and maybe still is a Broadcom employee, had the insight that when making a board like this, designed to kind of rekindle the interest in old school computing, that was there in the 8-bit days with the Commodore 64, the BBC Micro, that it had to have a cool graphics chip on it so that it could support modern-ish games. So all those older boards, especially the Arduino, that was just a microcontroller. You couldn't do really interesting computer-like stuff with it. But the Rascal started to get in that direction, all but the price point. It was about $100 still. And the, GPU, they call them GPUs today, graphics processing unit. But it's really a video chip. So Eben, let me get his name because let's talk about shouting out to people. Eben Raspberry Pi. I'm sure I have it wrong, but it'll correct. EBEN, Eben Upton, founder of the Raspberry Pi Foundation, right? So this guy changed the world. Maybe not quite as much as Linus Torvalds, but quite a lot. So I noticed that this $35 price point for this full-fledged computer was world-changing back when nobody else really even understood it, knew it was coming. So I ordered it early. I didn't get one of the first off the press, but I got one of the first from the second runs. I still own the thing. It's so super underpowered by today's standards. But back then, $35 for such a computer was absolutely world-changing. So I was the first one to really unbox a Raspberry Pi. Someone else might have done it first, but I was the first to talk about its significance, show it booting up, put the SD card in, the works. So that was one of my 2 million view videos, the other being this trick here. There it is. Can I have another million views? So I was also early doing a finger trick on the internet, 2 of my claims to fame, and really not much more. I've got a lot to offer. There's a lot that I do, a lot that I have to offer to the world, but those were 85. So it went from 83 to 85%. What's going on here? Maybe it's just a screen update thing. I know the last time I saw a big update, I exited out of not startup, but settings. At least settings is easy. I'll point out the good things about Windows too. Settings is easy to find. And this is no longer well, it is kind of labeled the start button, but once upon a time, it was labeled start. So it was start, stop. So it was like start up, shut down, start up, shut down. Like it was a built-in contradiction, much like Windows itself. So this thing going up and down here is about one of the best things Windows has ever done. I question the wisdom of documents and pictures, very consumer oriented, but I mean, Windows is consumer oriented, so, you know. But having the power here and the settings, very nice, very nice. Long time in coming. Those are the little things. That's what gets me excited about Windows. All right. So paint drying. Let's go back, see if there's anyone else. Or the same person saying it again, saying more stuff. Oh, what about Mac OS? Yeah, I used to work on Mac OS on and off, not just when it was Unix and love-worthy. It still is. It's still love-worthy. But I worked on Macs when I was on not the original 128K, not talking megabytes, 128 kilobyte Macintosh. I wasn't on that. I was on the 512K Mac before they got to 1 megabyte. That's what I went into Drexel University with. So that was highly proprietary. That was like from the days of, CPM, TOPS OS from the Atari. CPM was like the one that was on Z-Log processors, a lot of weird, computers that competed but weren't the Commodore 64. So I go way back with Mac operating systems also. It was one of the great miracles of tech to get the Mac both over to Intel hardware from the PowerPC hardware and the Motorola hardware before that, because it started out as Motorola, became PowerPC, then became, might have gone through Cell, it might have been, but from PowerPC basically to Intel. And at around the same time, they also made the switch from proprietary operating system to Unix. This was when Unix was really uncommon in the home. And I was a fan. I got on the Mac as fast as I could to be on the first mainstream, broadly distributed version of Unix. And it was a joy. All the good things about Unix were there. So I fell in love with having the Amiga-like stuff. So the Amiga had like command line redirection, piping, and bash scripts, essentially bash scripts, startup scripts, control over the startup sequence, the initialization process, and making pseudo programs by just piping things through each other and putting that all into a .sh file. So I fell in love with that on the Amiga in the early days when you couldn't even get Unix at home. There was no option. And then the Mac switched to Unix, and I had that again. So yeah, I loved it. It was great. Now, the thing that happened is Debian. Debian popularized a free and open source software repository that made everything easy to install. Huge future trend. Most of you today know it as Ubuntu. Ubuntu is Ubuntu because it's Debian plus the kooky hardware drivers that no one else wants to write. So the company Canonical said, oh, we'll take the best version of Linux for its software repository and add to it the best of proprietary drivers so that it will run on a lot of different hardware. So the best version of Linux was born as Ubuntu, that sort of leached off of all of Debian's great innovations. So Debian really kind of stuck it to the Linux community, saying you don't have to be even POSIX compliant. If POSIX compliance, the portable operating system standard, means you have to have the Red Hat package management system, RPM, and you got to yum yourself all this stuff that has incompatibilities and dependency chains breaking, then you can keep it. Debian's like, we'll resolve all those dependencies. We'll have this. It's not just a software repository. It's a super smart dependency resolution engine. So everything you try to install actually works. So Debian thumbed their nose basically at the Red Hat, Mandrake, IBM camp of Linux, the billion-dollar Linux that already existed. Debian thumbed their nose at it. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I ought to try this. And so I got my butt onto that and realized what apt-get install, the power of just having whatever software you wanted on your local system with a quick little command. From around the time, 30,000, 50,000 packages. Now it's hundreds of thousands. And that blew the Mac out of the water. It blew the Mac out of the water. Genuine Unix on a Macintosh was far inferior to Debian on almost anything because of software availability. So you might say, oh, the Mac had Fink. You remember Fink? I remember Fink because there wasn't much else at the time. And then it had Mac ports, and today it has Homebrew. So what's Homebrew? Is it supported by Apple? Is it official? Is Apple going to say, here's our free and open source software repository, Homebrew? No, it's completely contrary. They might slide it in. They might slip it in because, we're at 86%. They might slip it in because you need to do they included Ruby, right? Ruby on Rails became big. The Mac had to include Ruby on Rails. And everything Ruby on Rails did was Homebrew based, brew, install, or whatever. You brewed formulas. It's pretty cool. But first of all, it's not very official-ish in sounding and the way it looks and presents itself. It pales in comparison to Debian and Ubuntu. So I had, default Linux jealousy while on the Mac. I was looking over going, wouldn't it be nice to apt-get install all this stuff on the Mac? And you could use virtual machines. You could use Fusion, VMware Fusion. But everything was so fragile and brittle, you couldn't do serious stuff. It couldn't run 24/7. It wasn't always there. When your laptop came back from being awake, things went wrong. The primary operating system, or at least something as good as because even on Windows today, it's the Windows Subsystem for Linux that has apt install, that has Ubuntu and thus Debian software repository. But it's first class. You can tell it's first class. It's always there. As fast as you open a terminal, it's there. It feels like it's the built-in shell, the built-in terminal of Windows now. And it's awesome. So I switched to Windows 10 because of the Windows Subsystem for Linux, because of WSL. Left the Mac and never looked back. Don't miss it, not in the least. It's more valuable to be on a great software repository in the Linux world than it is to be on genuine Unix on the Mac without that, or with merely Homebrew, which I never found to be anywhere nearly as satisfying as the Debian or Ubuntu software repo. So that was a long ramble. I know it's a long answer for such a quick question, but the quality of the hardware build of Macs is awesome. I would still kind of like to be on Macs for the quality of the hardware build. Microsoft is just catching up to that. But Microsoft has caught up to that. And in the area of styluses and stuff, has surpassed it. And of course, general game support. Not that I'm a big gamer, but it's nice if your kid wants something and whatever, you get the mainstream version of it. Everything works. Let's see, I'm looking for the browser. Yeah. I still keep Macs around. There's some tricks you can do on Macs today with VMware Fusion, as a matter of fact, that make even today's PCs look a little bit, slouchy, like the ways Amigas made, Macs look slouchy back in the day. VMware Fusion on a Mac can let you do some really amazing things. It's just fragile. Yeah, chmod. Yeah, chmod is, permission issues between the Windows side of things and the Linux side of things is not perfect. Windows 11 makes it slightly more perfect. That's kind of what this is about. There's a lot of shortcomings. And I'll pop this chat window out so that I can not have this thing showing all the time. Pop out chat. I can minimize the browser. And now I can talk to you while we watch setup or settings. So what Desktop Chronicles is referring to is that WSL does not an integrated file system make. There's different file systems going on, and there's translation layers between the two. And it doesn't get everything perfect. If you do file permission stuff on the Linux side, it's not necessarily going to be reflected on the Windows side, but it's getting better. It's getting better. It hasn't been a showstopper. As a matter of fact, I have to tell you, the end game of all this is to get the heck off of Windows, to get the heck off of the Mac, as a matter of fact, too. And someday, driver support isn't going to be an issue for Linux on just any old hardware. And in that day, you should basically be able to use the Linux of your choice on the hardware of your choice and have no vendor in the picture at all, except for the hardware manufacturer. And the free and open source hardware movement is coming along too. Raspberry Pis, learning computers, just learning computers. It's not even computers. There's so much bad things about the language. What we're really doing is we're just becoming literate. We're becoming literate in the languages of the modern world. And there are some lingua francas, and you took up Python, it sounds like, because of me a little bit. I'm not sure. You said the Raspberry Pi, but Raspberry Pi chose Python originally to be part of its identity, and the Rascal before it, because there is no better way to get introduced to the modern literacy. You could say modern programming, you could say modern coding, but honestly, it's just modern literacy than Python. It's not perfect, but import this. Did I answer your question about chmod, the disconnect between the two file system worlds? One of the things I'll be doing real soon is installing the old Solaris file system, which was really super robust, which is what's used for Linux containers. So there's poor file system stories here, but there's some good ones too, and I'm going to zero in. I'm going to give a little history lesson on the, I forget exactly what they call it again, but the Zeta file system. It's what's recommended for getting LXD, Linux containers running under Linux. I just go to my site, mikelev.in, because I know it's one of my recent blog entries. Oh, you turn off these little peak things that happen when you mouse over. That's another thing. I got a mic. I like to talk. I love to talk into the mic. I love the mic. I'm Mike Levin. I've got some tales, so let's begin. One of my tales will be the tale of ZFS. I should have known ZFS. So in getting ready for Linux containers on the Windows Subsystem for Linux, talk about bubblegum sentences, LXD on WSL. In preparation for that, you install ZFS. ZFS in preparation for LXD on WSL, all this nonsense acronyms. But it's got a fascinating history. ZFS. ZFS on Wikipedia. It's just as good of a location as anything to learn about this stuff. And it's just a fascinating history of, first, how awesome this file system is that came out from Sun Microsystems before they were bought by Oracle. And this time period between 2005, when Sun was open sourcing everything because Linux was busting onto the scene, and the purists at Sun, talk about, purists and perfectionists. The people at Sun who made their own version of Unix, not Linux, but of Unix, called Solaris, got so many things right. They wanted to perfect Unix the way the Bell Labs people were trying to do with Plan 9, but this was on Sun's own proprietary hardware, so they could do really good things. But as proprietary hardware became less important, they decided, hey, Linux is going to kick our butts. We ought to commit a bunch of the good work we did to the world. So sometime between 2005 and 2010, when Oracle bought them, Sun started dumping a lot of their stuff out into the free and open source world. And one of the things they did was this zettabyte file system, now just ZFS. They dumped the zettabyte thing because it can store hundreds of thousands of zettabytes or something like that. It's just gone so far beyond it. And it's got all this redundancy and off-block checksumming and wonderful stuff. I'll probably do a different video on it. But it is perfect for things like containers. It keeps all your data good because I talk about that fragility. Virtual machines and containers are soap bubbles. Poof, they're gone. They were running, now they're not. The operating system that's sort of running the show as the ringleader, puppet master, that'll be there. Anything that was actually running in its little three-ring circus is subject to poofing, and along with all the data that might have been valuable right there along with it. So ZFS is a cure for that particular ill. And that's one of the first things we do, and one of the first things we'll be doing after this whole epic move from Windows 10 to Windows 11 to WSL to containers, to Linux containers under the Windows subsystem for Linux, so we can do some fancy tricks in preparation for making not Windows, but at this time, Linux daemons, Linux services that auto restart whenever the container starts. When we have the bravery to do it, we move these things from the container to the WSL parent system. But more importantly, we move it to cloud instances, we move it to Raspberry Pis, we move it to wherever we want to take control of that Frankenstein moment of turning on a computer, take control of it. That's the whole point of automation with machines. It's not web servers that are in other people's controls, and if they're running, you're lucky. No, it's, you pull that lever like Dr. Frankenstein, and everything that happens when the power hits the hardware is under your control, be it Mars probes to drones to web servers to cloud servers to virtual servers to, mobile phones, right? This will hit everything eventually. And the proprietary product makers are not thrilled about it. That's why all roads lead you back into the proprietary paths. They control the doors. Oh, have I checked out the Raven OS? Interesting project. I have not. I am about to. I like the kooky, fringe stuff. I like to watch it and kick the tires the way sports fans might like to watch. I don't like to use it, I gotta say. So when I search on it, I get first this Air YXOS, and then I get this next one. So I guess you must be talking about that. Looks like the official site. And Pygmy Marmoset, love the names. So it's a history thing. It's not just what is it. This is when I hit the back arrow and look for the Wikipedia entry to give me the 10,000 foot view. Yeah. Raven software. Well, it's going to be on one of the other ones. The GitHub homepage is probably going to be the way to go. They're going to give a good overview of the thing. In the README. A new open source OS project that aims to provide a similar experience and some compatibility with Mac OS on and eventually ARM, Intel-like and eventually ARM. Oh, it builds on BSD, yeah. So there is another schism in all this, which is genuine Unix, which has been used for a long time for bind, right? There's one killer app for which people use FreeBSD. FreeBSD isn't going away because all the distributions of the naming and addressing system of the internet runs on bind, and bind is most easily installed from FreeBSD because it comes from all the same people. And it has a repo. I've read about it. I haven't even kicked the tires on this, but if it's not Ivory Tower, if it's not some pristine vendor trying to control all its stuff, I'm actually generally more okay with it. FreeBSD is probably bundling a lot of best of breeds and stuff in it. I would imagine there it is supporting ZFS. So conceptually, I'm a fan. Functionally, how could you not use Ubuntu if you're a mainstream guy? I don't know if you tuned in for my little picture of the 80-20 curve and the average distribution and how to avoid being on the bleeding edge, reducing pain, and getting the maximum benefit of all good things while escaping vendor proprietary traps. But that's kind of the spirit of what I'm doing. So I'll kick tires, but I'm still kind of a little smartened from the Amiga going away, and I'm always very cautious of this stuff. As far as Linuxes go, I'm drawn to Gentoo, whatever have you, GIF, JIF, it doesn't matter. And Arch Linux with its Pac-Man repo system, very drawn to it, very old school, very much my vibe. Staying away from System D in favor of the older init.d system. So I'm aware of a lot of these things, but there's very little that can entice me over to it for day-to-day work. I'll look at it deeper and see what its particular points are. The Mac-like experience. Well, I don't like graphical user interfaces, so right away, emulating the Mac isn't going to be too exciting to me. Oh yeah, the chat is no longer in the browser. Yeah, chocolatey. I see you saying chocolatey. Oh, another person. Roblox Rose Plays Brew. Okay. Also, what's your opinion on the package managers for Windows, such as Winget, Chocolatey, etc.? So I don't know Winget, but Chocolatey I had to install because I helped someone install the Manim, M-A-N-I-M, Python math visualization library, and there was no other way. So Chocolatey, because it's a necessary evil. Oh, I can make that bigger. Sorry, folks. I could have let you read it all this time. Oh, and look, 96%. This will be fun. So Chocolatey, because you need something like the apt install system, Synaptic. You need something like the Debian package manager on Windows. Windows is no better off than the Mac along those lines, right? The Mac store, the App Store on the Mac and the Windows Store on Windows do not a free and open software repository make. So Chocolatey, yeah, I feel about the same way about it as I do Homebrew on the Mac. You know, if the vendors aren't going to do it, God bless the third-party free and open source community that comes in and steps in to do it. But that's shame on the vendors. Why isn't Chocolatey from Microsoft? Why wasn't Cygwin from Microsoft? Why did Microsoft not just say, okay, let's pre-install Cygwin, and instead of PowerShell, instead of not invented here, we can't include Cygwin, we'll make PowerShell for all the sysadmins to not feel abandoned and isolated when they have to come over to the Windows platform because their bosses say they have to. Oh, I got to be on Windows. Look at this DOS command prompt? Are you kidding? I can't use this. You don't understand, boss. This is not professional tools. Okay, Microsoft says, here's PowerShell. Well, Microsoft could have said, here's Cygwin. Should have said, here's Cygwin. Oh, Winget is from Microsoft. That is interesting. That's interesting. I will make a note of it to check it out. If I were on my regular system with Vim, I'd drop it in my notes. Yeah, but Xenix was from Microsoft too. Microsoft has infinite resources, and if someone badgers them about not having something as a checklist item, they'll be like, yeah, but then they'll somehow self-sabotage it and make it so that it doesn't catch on. I don't know about Winget. If someone like me doesn't know about Winget, see, Winget, I just got it, Winget. If someone like me doesn't know about Winget, does it exist? How can it miss my radar? Let's take a look at that. Oh, 100% installed. At any moment, this is going to interrupt us and start the reboot, and I will allow that to happen, bro. And Desktop Chronicles, it is definitely a pleasure. I hope to chat with you again soon. But let me do a quick Google on Winget and see if I can get a little bit of knowledge laid down on me in these last few moments. Yeah, well, it's definitely on a Microsoft official page. Package Manager Winget. To install and manage applications. Command line tool. Oh, bundled with Windows 11. I will be knowing about it, but now I'm cynical about that because Windows 11 was supposed to have a graphics subsystem for WSL. Okay, here we go. So yeah, I'm optimistic. On Windows 11, I'm definitely going to go check that out. Restart Windows. Okay, so we're going to be doing it right now, and I'll be doing it with saying goodbye to you through these guys. I'll stream again as soon as I can. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon. And when I do, I'll be under Windows 11, about to do that magic incantation, WSL space --, install. And that will be the next video. Great chatting. Thank you, Desktop Chronicles. I'll chat with you soon. Bye-bye.